Do you ever feel like your stock options are staring at you like these running shoes, begging to be exercised? Well, before you lace those up and sprint out there, let's talk about when to exercise your stock options and when to just let them chill on the sidelines. I'm Halliday. I've been trading in the financial markets for the past 25 years. I formerly worked as a Series 4 options principal. I know a lot about exercising and or exiting. I certainly know the ins and outs of the stock market world and the options market world. I have done this for many decades, and I can tell you that the majority of the time you do not want to exercise your options. Instead, you'll want to exit them. Let's explore the ins and outs of that in today's video. Exercising an option is generally not a good idea. Kind of like smashing your piggy bank for your lunch money. There are some scenarios where it might be okay, but if you want to learn when to exercise an option and when not to, you've come to the right place. Now, if you're new to options, you might actually be leaving money on the table by exercising an option instead of just selling it back to the market. So let's make sure that you're making the very best decisions for your future. In this video, I'm going to show you some examples and explain a scenario that happened, well, about 20 years ago that might describe why exercising an option is not the right call most of the time. Instead, we simply want to sell the option back to the market. So let's rewind back about 20 years. 20 or so years ago, there was a trader for a fund. His name was Clive, and he was a very intelligent man. He contacted our firm and said he wanted to exercise his call options on a stock. Now, why did he want to exercise those call options? Because he actually wanted to own the stock. And so he said, well, I'll just convert my call options into the stock by exercising them. And that's what exercising an option means, is you're literally converting your option into the stock. Well, there's a problem with that. And the problem is that options have time value. We know that time is money. And in the options market, that's literal. Time is worth money. And so because those options had multiple weeks before their expiration date, they still had some value to them. And so if Clive decided to exercise those options early, he would be wasting the remaining time value. And so I got on a call with Clive and I explained the scenario. I said, okay, if you exercise these, you are wasting X amount of money. And I remember it was thousands of dollars that would be wasted. I said, instead, Clive, here's what might make more sense. Sell these options back to the market. Get paid back the remaining time value, and then just go buy the stock in the open market. So instead of exercising your call, you simply sell it back. You get back more value that way, go buy the stock, and you're exactly where you want to be. You now own the stock, but you have thousands more dollars of value because you got paid back the remaining time value. Well, needless to say, he was very happy with that discussion, saved him a lot of money. Fast forward a couple of years later, and Visa was going through an IPO. And in those days, you had to get an allocation of shares. Well, Clive had an over allocation, and he contacted me and said, hey, would you be interested in some Visa shares on this IPO? And I said, Clive, I sure would. And so I got invested in the Visa IPO through my friend Clive. And that's a little story about karma, right? You do something nice for someone, and then karma comes back around and does something nice for you. And obviously Visa made me money on that IPO. So how does this scenario work in the real world? In exercising an option, you would have to notify your broker that you want your option to convert into the stock before its expiration time period. Again, 90 some odd percent of the time, it just does not make sense to do so. If you want out of the option and into the stock, you would be best served to simply sell your option back to the market and then go purchase the shares. That will end up, in most scenarios, ahead in dollar value. Now let's talk about when there might be an exception to this rule. When there might be an exception is when a dividend is involved. And when there's a dividend involved, The stock owner will collect a dividend, but the option owner will not. And this really only comes into play if your option is very, very close to its expiration and it's what we call deep in the money. So basically, it has no real time value left, but it might make sense to turn our option into the stock so that we can capture the dividend. Because again, stock owners collect dividends, option owners do not collect dividends. So there's only really one exception to this rule of never exercising your option early, and that's if a dividend is involved. Even then, you could still end up equal by selling your option back to the market, getting any remaining time value, and going and buying the stock. It would produce the same result or maybe even slightly superior result. So again, there might be an exception when it comes to dividends, but for the most part, the rule of thumb is we do not exercise our options early. Even though we have the ability to do so, it does not make it the right call. Most of the time, doing so would actually waste some time value, waste some money, and we are not in the business of wasting our capital. Hope you enjoyed this video. So if you want to learn more about dividends, about options, about exercising options, about how to sell them back to the market to take your profits, make sure that you hit that subscribe button, click the bell to be notified when the next video comes out. Come and learn more from the Cashflow Academy. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.